It is a very interesting fight coming up this weekend as Tank Davis is back in, a guy who is in the pound for pound top 10, according to this podcast, and many others. And now he is back looking to add to that resume. As we take our first look at Davis versus Roach, the thing that jumps out right away is obviously the Tank Davis resume. Mucho impressive. He is one of the best power punchers in smaller weight classes ever. Right now, it's him and Inoue, and nobody close. And in history, very few close to what Tank Davis can do with the power in those gloves. He is looking to add to that this weekend. He has fought 30 times. He has won 30 times. He has won by knockout 28 times. That, ladies and gentlemen, is silly good. It is a unbelievable record that he has been able to put together. And now you're starting to see a few more big names added to that, right? Like Ryan Garcia. Say what you want about Ryan Garcia, but he added to that. He has picked up some other big wins along the way as well, and he has turned himself into one of the biggest stars in the sport. And so that there is pressure. He is obviously the A-side. I think that there is a real threat on the other side of the ring this weekend, but he is the A-side. He is the big name, and a big part of that is, like, we have done a better job in boxing about saying, you know what? A loss or two doesn't matter. But still nice to see an O on those sometimes, isn't it? And so now Tank just has to make sure this isn't a banana peel to slip on, because there is a lot of pressure. When you are supposed to be the action guy, the knockout guy, the undefeated guy, that comes with a lot of pressure. So how does he handle that this weekend? He's handled it pretty good thus far. And to the point where there's already a lot of talk about what the next fight is going to be. Most are pointing now towards Shakur Stevenson coming off of a fight, at least, on Saturday. Now, he bangs up his hand in that one, so we will see if Tank and Shakur can actually get into the ring and settle this thing. But this is another one of those fights. It's like Benavidez a couple of weeks ago, where so much of the focus is on what's going to happen next before we get to this one. And who he is fighting is someone who, in Roach, is kind of finally reaching the potential that a lot of people thought he had. A decorated amateur career. He won gold at the National Golden Gloves and USA Boxing Youth National Championship in 2013. As an amateur, he was 125-15. Two of those losses to Tank Davis. So there's some history there as well, trying to get that back. But there is no doubt this is the biggest fight of his career. And it is obviously the toughest test of his career. There are very few fighters in the world who are on Tank's level anyway. So when you are fighting him, most people who are fighting them are fighting their toughest opponent. But this is a huge step up for Roach. It's a 6-fight winning streak since a loss to Herring for the WBO Super Featherweight Championship in 2019. Since then, again, it's 6 fights in a row, but it's only a couple guys with Wikipedia pages, which isn't the best way to scout things, but it's not a bad one either. So obviously, he is going to be a significant underdog going into the fight this weekend. But this is also kind of a spot that he was supposed to be in when you go 125-15 as an amateur. So we will see if this is a real test for Tank Davis or just a minor speed bump on the road to a bout with Shakur Stevenson coming up later on this year or early next year. Coming up later on this stream, and for podcast and YouTube watchers later in the week, we are going to have the undercard fighters to watch on this card. This does not have the depth that we saw a few days ago out in Saudi Arabia, but still a couple of interesting fighters to keep an eye on. So that's coming up a little bit later on in this stream.